I'm calling to order the November 10th, 2020 meeting of the Chesapeake Beach Ethics Commission at 1:08 p.m. We are now in order. First item on agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
Okay. All right. First item on the substantive agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 21st meeting. Does anyone have any objections or corrections?
No.
Okay, they are approved. The next item is consider request for advisory opinion. Mr. Larry Jaworski is the person who requested it. He has the right to at least ask that this be done in a closed session. I would say there doesn't seem to be anything in this particular case that requires confidentiality.
Agree.
Okay. All right, until and unless something comes, obviously that can change if somebody, if something comes up where we have to discuss personnel or personal information. All right, the request is this. Mr. Jaworski has just been reelected as a town council member. He is a member of the North Beach Volunteer Fire Department, which is physically located in Chesapeake Beach, and serves, just the Twin Beaches, Larry?
No, far greater than that. Our first due area actually extends up into Anne Arundel and down almost to Prince Frederick.
Okay. So he's been asked to accept appointment or run for election.
I would be nominated to serve on the board of directors. That would be subject to a membership vote at our December meeting.
Okay. And the question is, rather than just go ahead and do it and then be the target of a complaint, possibly, he's invoking the procedure that allows him to at least obtain our opinion in advance, and so he can then judge what to do in light of that. My feeling is this, if I may, and then if this reflects any misunderstandings, correct me. If, Larry, you were to be elected to the board, you would be subject to Ordinance provision 25-20A, which prohibits participation in certain matters. So a covered person may not participate in any matter in which any of the following is a party, an entity for which the covered person is an officer or director. So that would mean recusing yourself. Now, we also on the agenda are at least discuss areas where we may want to recommend changes in the ordinance. And it leads me to suggest that we get an amendment that would make it possible for you, in this case, to recuse yourself on, let's say, a vote to add a grant into the budget, but also allow you to vote on the rest of the budget. And we'll see where we go on that, but I think that ought to be done in order to make the recusal process workable. Now, section 2523 of the ordinance There's a distinction. The ordinance has two types of prohibitions. One is against participation in a matter that of the type we just discussed. The other is it bars a person from simultaneously holding two positions. For example, if a member of the council takes a job with a company that has a contract with Chesapeake Beach, the council member has to either resign his council position or his employment position, all right? And that's governed by 2523. But it says, well, let me see if I can find. Well, actually, it's pretty long. What it doesn't say, it talks about financial interests, financial interests in entities that deal with the town. It doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't say anything about this situation, that is membership on the board of directors of a nonprofit or a homeowners association or the public library, or I suppose you could be, PTA. So if it, at the moment, I would vote to say that the current law does not prohibit, would not prohibit you accepting the position. I am tempted to suggest to my colleagues that in fact we recommend to the town council to add a prohibition that would make it illegal for a council member to hold a position on the board of directors of another organization, because members of a board of directors have a fiduciary obligation to that organization, which may conflict with your fiduciary obligation to the town. And in one of the things you suggested to us is that the benefits to your becoming a member of the fire department board of directors is your ability to bring the interests of the town of Chesapeake Beach into the department's decision-making. I mean, again, I would think that would be better done by the town and the fire department having an agreement that would allow the town to appoint somebody to be a non-voting member of the board of directors or something. I mean, it seems to me the desirable outcome can be done without, actually having somebody be a member of both bodies. I'm going to turn it over first to Ingrid and then to Mike.
We're not hearing Ingrid.
Okay.
All right. Well, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, I'm just going to tell you how I'm thinking and you just summarize it in a nutshell. Plus, based on what I said earlier too, I think you kind of know my line of thought. And again, to me, it's reminiscent of Mayor Mahoney in 2016 telling several of the newly elected councilmen, hey, I don't want you on the board of directors of these various HOAs. I want you to step down from that. So to me, that's reminiscent of that whole concept. And also, too, if the town is giving the fire department a grant, there should be no strings attached. It's a grant. The money is given to them in good faith that they will use it wisely and make good decisions. I don't think we, as a town, should be micromanaging the execution of that grant.
Okay, hold on. Let me give you the first point Ingrid is making is that it reminds her of Mayor Mahoney's request that in 2016 that council members step down from any positions they have on the board of directors of their homeowners association. But Ingrid, what was the result? Did people do that
They did
or?
step down. I think there were in fact 4 of them, and they all stepped down.
And Ingrid thinks that there were 4 members of the council who were members of HOA Board of Directors, and they all did step down from their HOA leadership positions. The second point is that the grant from the town of Chesapeake Beach to the fire department is a no strings attached grant, and it shouldn't be any implication that they need to put a member of our town council on their board in order to receive that type of grant. So far, Ingrid? Anything else? Okay, this is not the last chance to speak before a decision's made, but Mike?
Yeah, I guess I see, I guess your initial proposal would be that on the budget, when the budget's issued, you would divide the budget into the main items and then a separate item for the grant to the fire department. And at that point, Larry would just recuse himself from that vote and then vote on that. I see that as a very workable solution. I have an issue, I guess my concern is that on some of these board of directors, there's so few people, and that you're limiting the people, the availability of people like Larry to serve on, both the town council and probably a really important role on the fire department. And I think, in a small town, I think we have to figure out ways to get around that problem, because I think his expertise can be good on both the town council and also on the fire department. So I'm wondering what can be a workable solution for this. I don't see that as an issue, because fire departments, if you were in a big city, you would have, fire department, police department, and you could have council members being on an oversight board on the fire department or town or police department. And that wouldn't be an issue. We're smaller, and so I just think can be some options that may be available for this.
Well, at the moment, does anyone disagree with well, actually, Fred, why don't we get our legal
Yeah,
advice?
let me just make a few observations. In addition to the sections of the ethics ordinance that you mentioned, Phil, I would also draw your attention to section 25-17, which provides that a covered person is disqualified from participating in any matter, including attempting to influence the decision in that matter, which involves a conflict of interest. And conflict of interest is defined elsewhere as meaning a divergence of opinions as to the 2 different entities or the 2 different situations. So not only is there a prohibition against participating in a matter where you are a director of an entity involved in that matter, there's also a more general prohibition against participating in a matter and also attempting to influence the decision in that matter involving a conflict of interest. So I was just bring that to the forefront. And the other observation I would make is that, Phil, as I think you noted, there could be different duties of loyalty to the fire department as a private entity and to the town. The fire department, as I was listening to Larry, describe it, has a service area much bigger than just the town of Chesapeake Beach and even the Twin Beaches. And there could be situations where there would be some fire department policies, procedures, operational decisions that would have to be made for the good of the entire service area that might not necessarily be in the interest of the town of Chesapeake Beach. I'm not intimately familiar with volunteer fire departments, I'll give you that, but there are potentials there for crossing the line, and the issue becomes if there is something that could affect the town of Chesapeake Beach adversely to others in the service area, where does the director's, in this case Larry's, loyalty lie? Does it lie in trying to stand up for the interest of the town of Chesapeake Beach internally in the fire department, or does it lie with the fire department itself, of which he is a member of the board of directors? So I'm not suggesting this would happen often, but I do foresee possibility of conflicting loyalties. One other point with respect to your comment about perhaps it could be the town's views could be accomplished by having a non-voting member of the board. I just within the past week dealt with this issue on a newly created foundation up in one of my other municipalities, a foundation to support the police department. Support an operation of the police department through another funding source. And the compromise that was worked out there was, the newly created foundation in its bylaws provided for a town council liaison who would be entitled to attend meetings of the board, participate to the extent of offering views on behalf of the town, but would be a non-voting member. That way the town's interest could be advocated and protected, yet there wouldn't be any potential for a conflict. So
Okay.
Those are my observations.
All right. Now, before I call on Larry, I'm seeing two things. One is it seems to be a consensus that if Larry goes on the board of directors of the fire department, he would have to recuse himself from participating in matters. And as Fred points out, that includes attempting to influence the decision. And that was advice we'd gotten from the State Commission a couple of years ago. It's not just a recusal from voting, it's a recusal from being in the room, nodding your head, any of that sort. The second thing is, I'm not hearing anyone saying that the current law prohibits a member of the town council from serving on the board of directors of the fire department. And most of the substantive discussion is whether we should suggest to the town, recommend to the town that it amend the law. But that's outside of the advisory opinion. Subject to what Larry has to say, and then follow up by Ingrid and Mike, seems to me our advisory opinion is that he's not going to be violating the law and not have to resign from the town council under the current law as it exists today, and probably it will exist on December 2nd. I would also have to keep in mind that, if the council amends the law, he'd have to resign from the commission, from the department board, January, February or something. Okay, Larry, your further thoughts?
Well, I understand the points that are being raised, and I appreciate it. And that's indeed the reason why I reached out to the commission to ask for that opinion. It's complicated because the fire department, as we've discussed, is not under the direction or guidance of either town. Any guidance or direction in terms of those kinds of activities actually comes from the county fire department. They have that kind of say over what the individual departments can do. The North Beach Volunteer Fire Department does indeed have some latitude as to what they can do themselves, but in general, they have to comply with the rules and regulations of the Prince George's, Calvert County Fire Department. I don't see a potential conflict. The only thing that would come up is the grant. That grant has been done, well, as I mentioned in my notes, in all 4 years that I was previously on the council, that was done every year without any requests being made by the department at all for that. And by the way, North Beach also makes a grant to the fire department.
What's the total budget? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I don't want to guess.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't want to guess. Although I will say the grant that the town of Chesapeake Beach gives them is a very sizable grant. North Beach kicks in 6,000 and we do
Whoa.
50. So,
Oh, okay.
so I appreciate everyone's thoughts. That's why I'm here, is to listen and see if I can answer any other questions.
Ingrid, on your thoughts on an opinion that advises that Larry would have to recuse himself as provided by the statute, and that at the moment there is no requirement, no prohibition against his serving on the board.
Yes, I agree with that, but I still think the question remains, should he serve on it?
Yeah.
Is that the best solution? And is there not somebody else in the fire department who could serve on that role? And certainly Larry could be a part of the decision-making process, but not be on.
Okay, Ingrid is saying that she agrees with the proposition that it's not illegal, but she strongly believes that as a matter of course that Larry shouldn't take the position, and there should be some alternative ways to achieve the goal that of making sure that Chesapeake Beach's beliefs and values and everything else are taken account of.
As we've said, they've gotten the money the last 4 years, and is there some concern now where we need to oversee that? Has something changed? If it hasn't, then why don't we leave it be?
And she's saying is for the past 4 years, there hasn't been a perceived need to oversee the department's use of the grant money. And unless there's been some change, there ought not be any change in the practice.
Now, the only thing I'll offer on that one, Phil, is that the town does ask the department to submit a summary of how the town's funds were spent. Just a summary of what'd you do with the money.
Okay,
That's great.
that's great, says
That
Ingrid.
gives us some accountability then, or gives the fire department some accountability.
That gives appropriate accountability. Mike?
Yeah, I just say that, Larry should recuse himself during the grant making process, and then he can be on the board of directors. I see no problem with that.
Right. I'm going to accept, no, I'll make a state of motion, which is that we write a advisory opinion that clarifies the recusal obligation if Mr. Jaworski takes the fire department position, and states that under the current ordinance, there's no requirement that he resign his elected position with the town in order to, if he takes the board of directors position. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Now, I'm going to suggest that if we can, we meet fairly soon to somebody, I'll draft language so we can have a vehicle for a discussion to consider whether or not we're going to recommend that the ordinance be amended to prohibit what we're saying right now it doesn't prohibit.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, because if you were to amend the ordinance to prohibit such participation, that would be particularly disruptive, since I would have just taken the board position in December. And if I had to resign in January or February, that would be very disruptive. to the.
Well, nothing that we could make a recommendation next week couldn't possibly lead to an amendment of the ordinance. I mean, you know better than I how long it would take.
Yeah.
So, if every, and it's not, if the three of us conclude it ought to be amended, that's not a certainty that the town council will vote in favor of amending. So I don't think there's anything we can do to get this all straightened out by December 2nd.
Which if that came before the council, I would obviously have to recluse myself from that
Yeah.
discussion as well.
Yeah.
Didn't you also put a grandfather provision to say that people that are on there, and so that,
Yeah,
if Larry was on there, it wouldn't impact him unless he accepted another nomination 2 years, 3 years from now.
yeah. How long is the term of office, Larry? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. It's, let me make sure I read it right here. I thought it was 2 years, so I'll keep reading here to make sure, but my understanding is it's a 2-year appointment. Yes.
Okay. All right. We know that now. All right. Is it possible or convenient to meet again in a week?
Yeah, I can meet.
Let me check my calendar. Hold on a second. Yeah, I'm good on Tuesday the 17th. Sharon,
Yes,
are you good on Tuesday the 17th at 1 p.m.?
yes, it's just that, well, I guess I could get it in the paper to run for this Friday for the 17th. You
Okay.
gotta have your advertisements in on Tuesday, so if I get
Oh.
it in there by 3 o'clock, we should be able to advertise for next week.
Okay. All right. Well, that is that. But the rest of the agenda is what I was suggesting we do is have a brief discussion of possible areas of improvements in the current ordinance, changes in rules of procedure, and the disclosure forms. On the disclosure forms, I actually think I want to suggest that we send an email to everyone who has made disclosures and ask for their comments on, how the form could be made clearer or easier.
That's a great idea. That's a really good idea.
It'd probably be appropriate if I bail out at this point.
You can. Okay. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Larry.
Bye, Sharon.
All right. I think on the, but I'll tell you, on the face of it, one thing we absolutely need to do on the forms is make clear that the real estate Form A, it makes clear that if you own 2 properties, you got to do 2 Form As. And ironically, Form B actually says that, if you own 2 businesses, submit 2 different Form Bs. So that shouldn't be difficult. But I would like to hear from everybody, whatever, and any suggestions on making this thing easier to use, despite what I consider some idiotic requirements by the state that we have to adhere to. On the ordinance, it probably would be, I'll tell you, one thing that has to be done on the ordinance, unequivocally, is in the disclosures. I'm sorry. Okay. In 2533 and some others, we say what has to be disclosed by other than elected disclosed by appointed officials. And then we say for elected position officials, a list of all interest in real property, wherever located, and for each property of the elected officials, a statement of, et cetera, et cetera. We interpreted that as applying to candidates. I think it ought to be amended to say elected officials and candidates.
Yep, that's a good idea.
So the other ideas I happen to have is I'll just circulate them tomorrow, the next day. So we'll have it in writing.
Okay, sounds good.
And some of these are improvements that I kind of thought of last time around, but got lost in the, I found overwhelming and confusing, size of everything we were doing. And now I think, more comfortable, asking us to maybe suggest 4, word changes or maybe 4 word changes and 1 substantive change.
Right.
Is that, oh, and the same thing with the rules of procedure. Although I really, again, I wish each of you 2 guys would read the current draft or current language, read it out loud. And, that's the best way of seeing if something sounds stupid or is missing something. And again, we're no sense of urgency here, but we now have, we've operated finally, we've done, first time we've done review of candidates and that sort of thing. So I think we can clean up our act.
Yeah, generally, I think everything worked out fairly well. So,
Yeah, I think I feel we lucked out, but that's fine. Luck is better than skill.
Yeah, I'm saying more of it was skill, Phil. Yeah, I think.
All right. Yeah, no, that's good. But I know, well, especially this thing about candidates having to submit this information. I think I had other things in the back of my mind as the process went through that we might have a problem if we had a challenge. Another thing that needs to be addressed openly by us is Council Member Morris's suggestion that our review of candidates' disclosures, which we unequivocally in the ordinance is all we're doing is checking to see whether they're complete. He was suggesting that no, our role should be to find that candidate Smith has disclosed a conflict that would bar him from being elected. And I think I want to have a clear discussion of whether that's desirable, and either we accept his suggestion or we on the record reject it. Yeah. All right. Does anyone, let me see where's the agenda? All right, we've scheduled the next regular meeting. Any comments by commissioners or the attorney or members of the public?
I have none, Phil.
I have none, Phil.
And Ingrid, what? Yeah.
In the meeting next time.
Yeah. By the way, one of the things, Sharon generally sets it up, she opens it or Holly opens the Zoom at 12:30.
Okay.
I go on the last couple of times, at 1:15.
Okay.
which gives us a little more flexibility, because I do remember I've been very upset at one of our earlier meetings where I couldn't get, the Zoom wasn't working. And
And I know it's worked every other time. I don't know why this time.
yeah,
Something I couldn't get in.
no, and Sharon was equally frustrated. And what was happening was, as each of us, logged on, her screen flashes up. Mike is in the waiting room. Do you admit him? And then she clicks admit, and there it is. You came up as the last person, and it says you're in the waiting room, and no place to admit. Maybe Sharon or Holly should contact Zoom.
I was thinking, is there a maximum number that we exceeded perhaps in terms of participants?
That's doubtful, but possible. Sharon,
Yes,
would you check
Yes.
on that? There's a possibility that there's a maximum number of participants on this Zoom account?
oh, no, because we've had more than this before on other things. I don't think there's any, maybe like 100.
Yeah, well, but at least check it. I mean, they need to explain why it was that we couldn't admit a sixth person.
Yeah, it could have been operator error too.
Well, but we've all, most of us have enough experience to know that, it's one thing to say you pushed the wrong button or something, but, the fact that it doesn't give you the option of admitting, anyhow, we straighten it out by next week, that'd be great.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone else have anything to say? All in favor of adjourning indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The session is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep. And we'll see-
Everybody stay healthy and safe.
Yep,
Yes, sir.
Well, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.